Hello everyone, in our video today we will show you 10 countries with the strongest armies in the world. So let's start. Number 10. Italy. Italy has 171,000 active army personnel in 10th place. Today, Italy spends $28 billion American dollars to finance its armed forces. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the Italian armed forces. 200 main battle tanks in the Italian armed forces inventory. More than 2,600 armored fighting vehicles. There are 54 Cundam motor gunners and 21 multi-launch systems. And now it's in the air inventory. There are more than 830 aircraft in the Italian armed forces. Among them over 100 fighter jets. There are over 400 helicopters. Now it's naval power. There are over 180 ships in the Italian Navy. 2 aircraft carriers and 4 destroyers in this navy today. There are 12 frigates, 2 corvettes and 8 submarines. Number 9. Turkey. More than 355,000 active armies, 9th leading Turkey with staff. Today spends $19 billion to finance the armed forces Turkey. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the Turkish armed forces. More than 2,500 main battle tanks in the Turkish armed forces inventory. More than 7,000 armored fighting vehicles. More than 1,100 Cundam motor gunners and more than 300 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 1,100 aircraft in the Turkish armed forces. Among them, about 240 fighter jets. There are over 500 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 190 ships in the Turkish Armed Forces Navy. Today there are 1 aircraft carrier, 16 frigates, 10 corvettes and 12 submarines in this navy. Number 8. South Korea. South Korea has more than 590,000 active army personnel. Today, South Korea spends $43 billion American dollars to finance its armed forces. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the South Korean armed forces. More than 2,300 main battle tanks in the South Korean Armed Forces inventory. More than 2,800 armored fighting vehicles. There are more than 3,000 Cundam motor gunners and more than 220 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 1,600 aircraft in the Southern Armed Forces. More than 430 fighter planes among them. There are more than 250 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 150 ships in the South Korean Armed Forces Navy. Today there are 1 helicopter ship, 12 destroyers, 1 carrier ship, 13 frigates, 13 corvettes and 17 submarines. Number 7. United Kingdom. The 7th place is the United Kingdom with more than 150,000 active army personnel. Today the British Army spends $50 billion American dollars to finance. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the British Army. More than 220 main battle tanks in the inventory of the British Army. More than 2,300 armoured fighting vehicles. There are more than 80 Cundam motor gunners and more than 30 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 900 aircraft in the British Army. More than 160 fighter planes among them. There are more than 270 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 80 ships in the Navy of the British Army. Today there are 2 aircraft carriers, 6 destroyers, 13 frigates and 10 submarines in this Navy. Number 6. Japan. Japan has more than 147,000 active army personnel. Spending $47 billion to finance the Japan Army today. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the Japanese Army. More than 1,000 main battle tanks in the inventory of the Japan Army. More than 840 armored fighting vehicles. More than 200 Cundam motor gunners and more than 90 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 1,500 aircraft in the Japanese Army. More than 370 fighter planes among them. There are more than 640 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 150 ships in the Navy of the Japanese Army. Today there are 4 helicopter ships, 26 destroyers, 10 frigates, 6 corvettes and 20 submarines. Number 5. France. In the 5th place, France with more than 300,000 active army personnel. Spending $63 billion to finance the France Army today. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the French Army. More than 600 main battle tanks in the inventory of the Army of France. More than 3,200 armored fighting vehicles. There are more than 120 Cundam motor gunners and more than 10 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 1,250 aircraft in the French Army. More than 190 fighter planes among them. There are more than 560 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 180 ships in the Navy of the French Army. Today there are 1 nuclear-powered airship, 3 helicopter ships, 10 destroyers, 11 frigates and 10 submarines. Number 4. India. India has 1.5 million active army personnel. Spending $67 billion to finance the India Army today. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the India Army. More than 4,800 main battle tanks in the inventory of the Army of India. More than 2,900 armored fighting vehicles. There are more than 200 Cundam motor gunners and more than 260 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 2,100 aircraft in the India Army. More than 570 fighter planes among them. There are more than 700 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 300 ships in the Navy of the India Army. Today there are 1 airship, 11 destroyers, 14 frigates, 23 corvettes and 20 submarines. Number 3. China. China has 2 million active army personnel, spending $178 billion to finance the China Army today. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the China Army. More than 7,000 main battle tanks in the inventory of the Army of China. More than 4,800 armored fighting vehicles. There are more than 1,700 Kundam motor gunners and more than 1,700 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 4,500 aircraft in the China Army. More than 1,670 fighter planes among them. There are more than 1,000 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 700 ships in the Navy of the China Army. Today there are 2 airships, 33 destroyers, 52 frigates, 42 corvettes and 75 submarines. Number 2. Russia. Russia has more than 900,000 active army personnel, spending $61 billion to finance the Russia Army today. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the Russia Army. More than 13,500 main battle tanks in the inventory of the Army of Russia. More than 3,500 armored fighting vehicles. There are more than 5,500 Kundam motor gunners and more than 3,600 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 4,200 aircraft in the Russia Army. More than 100 fighter planes among them. There are more than 1,400 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. There are over 400 ships in the Navy of the Russia Army. Today there are 1 airship, 5 warships, 11 destroyers, 10 frigates, 78 corvettes and 60 submarines. Number 1. America. America has more than 1.5 million active army personnel, spending $693 billion to finance the America Army today. Let's take a look at the field equipment of the America Army. More than 800 main battle tanks in the inventory of the Army of America. More than 30,000 armored fighting vehicles. There are more than 900 Kundam motor gunners and more than 1,000 multi-launch systems. Now in the air inventory. There are more than 14,000 aircraft in the America Army. More than 2,800 fighter planes among them. There are more than 5,700 helicopters. It's time for Navy power. Today there are 11 nuclear-powered airships, 9 helicopters, 22 warships, 69 destroyers, 19 corvettes and 70 submarines. In this video we showed you the 10 strongest armies in the world. If you like the video, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. See you in the new videos.